What's up, everyone? My name is Denzel Mensah. In case if you do not know me, I'm a certified life, personal development, and relationship coach, ENFJ 9-1. And today, I want to talk to y'all about how to foster platonic intimacy. Let's get it. Alright, so if you are new to my channel and you have not seen my video on the 8 different forms of Greek love, which is pretty much like the 8 different ways that the Greeks described love or defined love, then that is some backstory that you should probably check out when you get the chance. Also, I did a video on what is platonic intimacy, where I pretty much at the very least scratched the surface of what platonic intimacy is. If you haven't seen that, you should probably also go check that out. In this video, I plan to plunge a lot deeper into both of those concepts, because after I posted the what is platonic intimacy one, then I actually received a whole lot of questions from emails, from clients that I was coaching, from a lot of different friendships, a whole lot of questions on how to actually know if it's a platonic dynamic or if it's a romantic dynamic. I want to first off preface this by saying that this is very abstract stuff. We're talking about interpersonal nuances and connections, and so at the end of the day, it's pretty much only you that will actually know whether you are platonically attracted to someone in an intimate manner or romantically, or even if it's just erotically, which I personally think that that's one of the simplest ways to dissect these. It does go a lot deeper, but if you really think about it, then you have platonic in one area, you have romantic in another area, and then you also have erotic in another area. And they can each stand by themselves. You know, like if you have just an erotic dynamic, well, then you pretty much have what we would call a F buddy, which is different from if you have a platonic dynamic infused with that erotic dynamic. Then instead of an F buddy, you have a friend with benefits, But then if you maybe combine the platonic, the erotic, and the romantic, then you pretty much have what I would like to think a really great romantic relationship, If you have just the romantic, then you're pretty much really absorbed into your partner. We all know those people who they don't know how to chill. Those couples that don't know how to chill when they're around their friend group and stuff like that. They're always kissing each other. Oh, babe this, babe that. They don't have enough platonic foundation to be able to just relax and blend in with the rest of the friend group. They have to be seen as the couple or one of the couples in that way. So you can see these imbalances like when you think about it. And then of course, if you just have erotic, again, like somebody who's with a sex worker is not romantically or platonically attracted to that person. It's just something that stands by itself. So these nuances already can get your mind thinking about how it's not that simple. It's not that binary when it comes to our connections with other people. And one thing that I've noticed is that in our society, we have been taught that there's a level of intimacy that is only reserved for romantic dynamics. And if you plunge past a certain level of intimacy with the person, then that means that you are romantically interested in that person. And I have found that to not really be true. Now, I grew up in the Bronx of New York. So you can only imagine, as an ENFJ 9, growing up in the Bronx was pretty tough, especially as a guy, because I would try to draw closer to certain guys and I would try to foster intimacy. And all that I really got was like a lot of like homophobic type of slurs and things of that nature. And I knew for certain that I was not homosexual. Not that there's anything wrong with homosexuals. I just know that I'm 100% straight. But in order to save face for the guys and for myself, then I instead started gravitating toward women to foster intimacy with them, because I would have rather dealt with people thinking that I was romantically or erotically interested in those women, when in actuality it was just a platonic intimacy that they probably didn't understand, than for people to actually think that I was homosexually involved with guys, when again I was really just trying to foster intimacy with them, and they didn't understand it. Especially back then in those days, there was just a lot more homophobia and a lot more insecurity with one's sexuality. I don't think that that's as much of a problem now, even to the point where now, my intimates, I actually have guys who are in my friend group of intimates. My best friend David, who actually was here just this past week, and we were able to make an updated video of our ENFJ INFJ video that we recorded like 7 years ago. We did another video now, that's going to be dropping at some point, if it's not already dropped by the time that this video comes out, on how the NFJs mature over time. I think that he is actually a great example of an intimate person of mine that I have very strong platonic intimacy with. And then another actually NFJ friend of mine, Emrys, you guys might know him. I hadn't seen him since college days, at least not in real life. And he happened to also be here for overnight last week. So not only was I able to have one-on-one time with both him and with David, but then we were able to also all three just have some guy time and have really enriching conversation. And I believe that we were all three getting very intimate with each other. And it was great. I just love the idea of resting into that. But I feel like there's a lot of people, and I've seen it, there's a lot of people who have not been able to actually notice what this means. And they still believe that a certain level of intimacy is not only reserved for romantic dynamics, but on top of that, if you get to that certain level of intimacy, then you are romantically interested in the person. And that could not be further from the truth. So one of the ways that I identified this is actually a little bit uncomfortable to share. And I want to give you a heads up that this might be a video, or this might be a part where, you might not really like to hear about it. But just please know that I just found that it was really necessary and helpful. And I'm hoping that, I've seen it help other men, especially when I've shared my personal story with them. And I'm hoping that it could also help, with any men that might be watching, or even women by some case. And so without further ado, let me just jump into it. I had become friends with an INFJ woman a few months before I had gotten married. And we continued to grow in our friendship in a way that was incredibly cosmic. It felt kind of as if we had like some sort of like soul chemistry of some sort as we spoke. And it was just awesome. We would spend a lot of time, like even after I'd gotten married, we had spent a lot of time, just texting and just talking about, like how our minds work and our experiences and insights that we've had and just things along those lines. And we really deeply understood each other. She often wrote her poetry in a way that was describing how her mind works. It was very abstract, but it was also like just almost like taking you as a guide throughout her mind. And it was personal for her, but she shared it. And whenever I would read her poetry, I noticed myself have an erection. Now, at the time, I was freaking out. I'm like, oh my gosh, am I lusting? Am I cheating on my wife? All of this stuff. And I'm like thinking to myself, like, what the heck is going on? Because I just intuitively knew that I was not romantically or erotically attracted to this friend of mine, and vice versa. I just intuitively knew that, and we never spoke about inappropriate things. Conversations were actually quite wholesome, even though they were deep and intimate and self-exposing, but they weren't like flirtatious in nature or anything of that nature. So it was just very interesting that's what would happen. The poetry was also not explicit in nature in that sense, but that was the effect that it had on me. And then in the same sense, she had created a playlist, an INFJ playlist that pretty much went in order. And so when you listen to the playlist, it's almost like an album or a soundtrack to her mind. And I remember listening to the playlist, and I already knew a lot of those songs, and yet still same effect that I would have. And I'm like, what the heck is happening? These songs, I think not even one of them was erotic in nature. So I was very confused at the time. And then even lastly, there would be times where I'm just simply texting her back, and then I'd have the erection. And so this became a big deal for me. But instead of immediately demonizing it and, doing all these crazy things and feel like, oh, I have to cut this person off, I actually took the self-introspection route for once. And I sat down with those feelings and those urges, whatever it might have been, and I started to examine them. I'm like, I know that I'm not attracted to this person in a romantic or an erotic sense. What the heck is going on here? And the conclusion that I came to is that as guys, our bodies are not able to tell these nuances between a platonic intimacy that's really just literally for you to get closer to a person platonically versus a romantic / erotic kind of intimacy. And so even though I had every 100% pure intention of only getting to know this person on a deeper level as friends, my body was still registering intimacy to a level, and it was like, oh, okay, time to rev this up. Something is supposed to be happening soon. And I think that this can often confuse a lot of guys into thinking that they are erotically or romantically attracted to people that they're not. And then they start to force an erotic or romantic dynamic with the person because they're following, for lack of better terms, their penis, rather than actually sitting down and really evaluating, is this actually one of those situations, or is this just my body's reaction because I'm a straight male that is actually becoming intimate with a female, even though it's not a romantic or erotic dynamic? Now, I was able to verify this when I actually did meet this friend in person, and even Jamila went with me, and she was able to see like, oh yeah, this is not that. Like, you guys are definitely just platonically intimate with each other, and it's something that's hard to explain, but y'all are just really close in a platonically intimate fashion. And so even Jamila was able to tell that even if I were single and everything at the time, this is not somebody that I would have actually been romantically interested in, despite how my body was responding to our interactions. Instead, my body was pretty much just picking up on these, oh, we are plunging into territory that we don't often plunge into unless if it's in a romantic dynamic, or we've only associated it with the romantic dynamic because society has taught us to reserve these kinds of levels of intimacy for romantic dynamics. And I think that that's sometimes harmful. When I was younger, I heard Kanye's verse in the song No Church in the Wild, and in it, he said something along the lines of,
2 tattoos, 1 red, no apologies. The other said love is cursed by monogamy.
Love is cursed by monogamy. That's something that a pastor don't preach. That's something that a teacher can't teach. And I remember hearing that and immediately being like,
what? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
There's no way. Like, this is foolishness. Like, obviously, intimacy and love is most found in romance and monogamy, and that's where it's most beautiful. Now I've reinterpreted that verse as I've gotten older, and I don't know if this is the way that Kanye meant it in that song, but the way that I actually interpret it now is that, you know what, maybe love really is cursed by monogamy. Not that monogamy is bad, but monogamy has become such an idol placed on a pedestal that we all know those couples who, once they do get into a romantic relationship of some sort, they completely neglect their friendships and their family and all the other people that they love, and they take all of their love and invest it in their partner. And then they become this island couple of some sort. And then, God forbid, they break up. And then all of a sudden that friend comes crying back to their family, comes crying back to their friends, and is like, oh no, boom, boom. And they're trying to get their friends back in some way and start watering those relationships again until they find another romantic partner. And I think that that's where love is cursed, because love is cursed by monogamy, because we see love contained in the box of monogamy. We see love contained as in, like, we can only express our deepest and intimate love in monogamous relationships, monogamous romantic relationships. But I personally believe that there are different types of intimacy, and there's different forms of love that can be just as intense as a romantic love, even though it's not a romantic love, and it should not be confined to just a romantic love of some sort. Because if anything, us over idealizing our romantic relationships with other people is, in my opinion, actually harming us a lot more. So I actually talk a little bit about this as well in a video that I did with my friend Stephanie. She's an ENFJ sexual 5, and we're talking about soul ships. And I feel like the INFJ friend that I started off this story with was the linchpin for me to finally actually understand that there's a lot more to these interpersonal nuances and intimacy than what society has taught a lot of us. And so when I got to being able to know Stephanie, for example, then we were able to continue to foster a level of intimacy that was, again, free of romantic attraction and things of that nature. And it was comfortable in that sense. I saw this as well with my guy friend Cameron, who we are both, again, like, we're married to women and we're straight and everything, but we explored like a lot of intimacy with each other in the ways that we would talk to each other and like the topics of conversation that we spoke to with each other. We were very vulnerable and we shared a lot of the things that we thought and a lot of things that we felt, a lot of our experiences with each other. And I believe that fostering intimacy is exactly that. It's pretty much handing over your Platonic knives. What I mean by that is that intimacy is best fostered when you are able to become intimate enough with yourself to be able to explore yourself and understand, your weakest points and your vulnerable points, and see your weaknesses and hand over those weaknesses and those weapons that are completely designed and tailored to destroy you to a person that you are becoming intimate with, and trusting that they will not misuse it, that they will not use it to harm you. That's where I personally think that intimacy really shows up in favor. And I've actually been in this phase where I've been really exploring and doing a lot of shadow work. I've been really allowing myself to understand who I am on a deeper level. And I've been, instead of trying to just slay my dragons in the dungeon, I actually go into the dungeon and I get to know the dragons. And as I get to know them, then I realize that at their core, at their base, they're not inherently evil. Almost like the biblical allegory with where God said that everything was good when he created it. But these dragons are just perverted, which just means that they are being used in ways that they were not created for. They have been altered. They are misunderstood. They're misguided. And the goal, instead of just slaying them, is actually to take the time to understand what is at the root of these issues, and getting to move them from now understanding and me getting to know them in that dungeon, and then eventually bringing in some friends into that dungeon so that the dragons can also acclimate to them. And eventually, I'm able to bring the dragons up over the surface, out of the dungeon, and I'm able to soar on them. And other people see me then soaring on these dragons, and they're like, wow, you know what? Instead of trying to slay my own dragons, I want to learn how to soar on them like that guy. And I think that that's where shadow work really comes into play, because you start to really get to know yourself on an intimate level. And from there, you're able to share your intimacy with other people. You're trusting that they will not harm you in that way. And of course, that's not for everyone. But the people that you feel most close to, that's where you're able to foster that intimacy with. And it becomes a kinship of some sort that grows and evolves into something that's very beautiful. I think that it is imperative that we all take the time to know ourselves and our dynamics. That way, when other people try to tell us what a dynamic is, we know ourselves enough to be able to say, no, that's just not what it is. And we do not allow them to confuse us. So what I mean by that is, for example, in my Platonic intimacy video before this one, I used the examples of Tori Vega and Andre from the show Victorious. I absolutely love them as characters because they are what I would like to consider the epitome of Platonic intimacy. I do not sense any romantic attraction between them, nor erotic attraction between them. But I definitely sense intimacy. When Andre was having problems with really liking Jade in the episode Jaded, he showed up at Tori's door in midnight hours in his boxers, not so he could screw her or something, but so he could vent to her about the issues that he was having with the feelings for another woman. And Tori was not jealous or anything of that nature, but she was genuinely supportive and wanted to help him out with that. And when Tori even has her own relationship stuff, then Andre is there for her. They really support each other, in several kinds of ways. Tori helped him to get a better grade and just so many other things. There was even an episode where when Andre was offered a record deal, then even though they were hanging out with their friends, Andre pulled Tori to the side so that he could tell her first. And I believe that it's stuff like that that just exemplify the close kinship that they have with each other without it being something that's romantic. However, when you look at what fans say about them, then you actually see a lot of people saying like, oh, Andre and Tori should be together. It's so clear that they're romantically interested in each other. I don't think so. I think that we have been societally groomed to thinking that any heterosexual people that become really intimate and close friends automatically are romantically attracted to each other and should be together, when that should not be the case. Now, don't get this confused with Chase and Zoe from Zoe 101. That was actually a dynamic where they had enough platonic lacing in there, but it was definitely more of a romantic dynamic. They were suppressing their romantic feelings for each other and trying to make it more platonic. But it was very clear that they were actually romantically interested in each other. But this is different from Andre and Tori, and I think that it takes you knowing yourself and knowing your dynamics to be able to actually stand before other people and be like, no, even though you think that this is the case between me and this person, it's not. And you have to be able to understand that they're coming from a place of being societally groomed to, see things in a certain way. But at the end of the day, like I said, only you are able to tell if you are actually romantically or platonically or even just erotically interested in someone. And some of the best ways to be able to do that is through experiences. You have to experience different relationships with different people so that you're able to then see the pattern of like, oh, wait a minute, I know how my romantic relationships or my romantic attraction is because I've been in enough to be able to identify the pattern there. This is not one of them. This is intimate, but it's not romantic. It's platonically intimate. Oh, this is erotic. Got you. Got to stay away from this, unless if that's what you want and that's what you're looking for. But it really helps to be able to have these experiences and psychoanalyze them psychoanalyze yourself, so that when other people come in and they try to like, oh, you two should be together or whatever, you two are really interested in each other, you can know for yourself that you're not actually interested in that person in that way, unless if you are, and then that's a whole different story. So I have another personal example for you guys. Hopefully it'll help. I have a really amazing friend. Her name is Lauren. She's an INTJ. She's a sexual 5. Me and Lauren have the closest relationship that Andre and Tori seem to have as well. Whenever we hang out, we're always talking about very deep things. We're always exploring each other's hearts and minds. We are always sharing our experiences. We're always discussing our ideas on certain concepts. We're always sharing our insights, several things like that. On top of that, we're very affectionate to each other. There are times where I would lay my head on her shoulder. There are also times where I remember at the Personality Hacker latest event that we had went to, there was even a night where we were just talking so much in her hotel room. I was in the same bed as she was, and we were just completely just talking about anything and everything. We were actually trying to understand each other better in certain ways. We were sharing experiences in certain ways, and then eventually she fell asleep and I went back into my own room. Now, especially growing up in a Christian background, there are societal pressures that would pretty much push on things like this, like, oh, that's inappropriate, and that's completely understandable. But again, I feel like when you know yourself enough, when you know your dynamic with a person enough, then you're able to actually separate, and you're able to actually operate in ways that society may try to impose on you, and you can go against that. I know that from the outside looking in, somebody, just like they would do with Tori and Andre, might examine me and Lauren's dynamic, and they might be like, oh, those two clearly like each other. Oh, if Denzel was not married, he would definitely, be romantically interested in her, which I can honestly, thankfully say for myself, because I've done this self-introspective work, no, that's not really the case. She is a pretty woman, sure. She's also an incredibly dope person in general, but I'm just not romantically attracted to the person. I know what it means to be romantically attracted to someone. I'm married, but I'm not dead. So I have been, oh, there's a romantic spark with this person. Be careful there. Oh, there's an erotic spark over here, potential over there. Be careful there. So because I've gotten to know and identify those patterns, then when it really is just a purely platonic relationship, then I'm able to identify that, and I am able to stand up for myself and know, like, nope, that's just not the case. Other people might not believe it, but I believe it, and I know myself enough, and the other person knows themselves enough to be able to handle that in that way. And I feel like that's where it really becomes crucial for someone to be able to identify for themselves whether or not they are platonically, erotically, or romantically interested in someone. But it doesn't just stop with the intimacy itself, because there are levels of intimacy that can be found in a platonic dynamic. I think our lack of knowledge in the nuances in these dynamics causes us a lot of harm. Going back to that whole Kanye line. And it does that in several different ways. I remember talking to an INFJ friend. She's a sexual 9. She's older than me. She's married and everything. And I was explaining my ideas on exactly what I'm explaining to you guys right now, on platonic intimacy and things of that nature. And she was able to grasp it right away and even build on it with her own experiences. And so we discussed that. And as we were discussing that, then there was another INFJ who was a sexual 2 that had overheard the conversation. And obviously I deal with a lot of INFJs. I love y'all. And as we were discussing that, the sexual 2 INFJ had a lot of resentment, or not resentment, but resistance against what we were talking about. Like, no, but it shouldn't be that way, especially if you are in a committed relationship, which is completely understandable. but not the case. Not always the case, I guess I should say. This INFJ Sexual 2 went on to explain how she would find herself pretty much becoming intimate with another guy while she was in a romantic relationship already with a previous guy. And every time she found herself doing that, then she would start to feel very bad to the point where she had to break up with the one that she was in a romantic relationship with, because she then felt like she was cheating on him and she had to get with the next guy. And that actually made me so sad. What I was hearing was that she was not able to identify whether or not it was just her NFJ and on top of that sexual dom instinct to just connect with people on an intense level, but that intensity, even if it can be equal to a romantic intensity, is still not the same. And so she was really subduing herself and kind of honestly shrinking herself because she was so fearful of overstepping certain lines. And it wasn't until I explained more about my experiences and my thoughts on platonic intimacy that she really, to this day, months later, has really began to understand that, wow, there's a lot more freedom in the way that I can operate, especially knowing that this exists. I am not romantically interested in these people, and I couldn't tell her, about the past people. Only she would be able to know. But the thing is, she didn't even give herself the opportunity to sit down and really identify, like, wait, do I actually like these guys on a romantic/erotic level? Or am I just an intimate person? And that's not really something that should be bad. Of course, in your relationship, your romantic relationships, if you guys have decided on, even on a platonically intimate level, like there's people who are like, yeah, no, you're not allowed to have friends that are of the opposite sex. That's y'all's rules and y'all's, dynamics, and it's understandable, respectable. But if that's not really the case, then you shouldn't inflict that upon yourself and shrink yourself, because a lot of times it's these platonically intimate dynamics that produce the best fruit for those same people to go out into the world, because love is produced in a lot of these dynamics and it's able to spread more freely. And a lot of times too, especially when you're in a romantic couple, like when you're in a romantic relationship, as you go and you have these intimate connections with other people, then when you come back to your romantic partner, you have so much more to share about yourself with that person. And if y'all are secure and y'all know where y'all stand with each other, then there's no reason to fear that, oh, somebody out there is going to really spark you in that sense. Especially if you are already aware of, oh, I can identify if this is a romantic spark or if this is an erotic spark, if it's both, whatever. All that being said, take some time whenever you are actually getting to know someone. Whenever you're feeling like you're growing intimate with the person, take the time to actually understand, okay, do I actually like this person in a purely romantic sense? Or is this actually an intimate platonic sense? Is this an erotic sense? Is there some lacings of both? Take the time to at least examine it before throwing it aside, because that will really help you in the future. So if you want to see more examples of this, I say definitely check out Tori and Andre's dynamic throughout the show Victorious. If you only want to check out like 2 episodes, I always recommend the episode The Diddly Bops, and I also recommend Jaded. In those episodes, you're able to see enough just as a starter of like how close they are, but you will be able to tell the difference still now that you're aware of platonic intimacy, that, oh, this isn't really an actual romantic dynamic, but it is intimate in a way that maybe we're not used to seeing between a guy and a girl. And if you also want some more examples, check out the movie Zootopia. Check out the movies Harry Potter and examine Harry and Hermione's dynamic. I haven't read the books, but I've spoken to enough people to also realize that even in the books, it seems to be clear that Harry and Hermione are not actually romantically interested in each other, even though other people including fans, might think that, oh, they definitely should be together. But just because you are intimate with someone does not mean that you should be romantically involved with the person. If any of you would like to discuss any of these matters with me, hey, hit up denzelmensah.com. I would like to think I'm a very non-judgmental person, and I'd happily, discuss that with you and help you, work through some things if it's coming to that, or if you just want to be profiled or coached in other ways. You can find me at denzelmensah.com and book sessions with me over there. I'd be more than happy to help in any ways that I can. And last but not least, I would love to hear about y'all's experiences. Drop them in the comments. Email me. It's from not only my experiences and the experiences that I watch of other people and discuss with them, but also people like y'all who might comment and tell me like, hey, thanks for sharing this, or I agree or I disagree and this is why, and share your own experience. Let's really try to continue to find more patterns with this and then verify those patterns with real life examples. I don't want to just speak theory to you guys. I want to live it out, and I want us to live it out and then come back and discuss. Humans are complex. Humans are intricate. And so are their relationships and their dynamics. And that's also why we should not make it binary. So yeah, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, drop them in the comments below. Email me, book a session with me, and let's talk about this. Thanks for taking the time to watch the video. This is actually my second time recording this video. And that's why I was a little bit not really collected because I feel like I did way much better in the other recording, and then I realized after I was done recording it that this mic was off. I could have cried. It's a whole 40 minutes just gone down, but hopefully the point still gets across over here, and yeah, just thanks for watching it this far. Don't forget, you matter. Done. Thank you for taking the time to watch that video, and if you enjoyed that, please like and subscribe. It actually really helps out my channel a lot, so that more people who actually care about what I want to say can actually find me a lot more easier. Also, if you did enjoy it, then maybe you'll enjoy a lot of my other content as well, so be sure to check out some of my playlists where you'll be able to find a lot of my older videos and older content. And last but not least, if you would like any profiling sessions or coaching sessions, be sure to check out denzelmensah.com, where you'll be able to book me and you'll see the rest of my services. But thanks again, and have a great day.